Most men do not hide pain because they are strong. They hide pain because they learned that displaying it often changes nothing. And that is where the discussion should start, not with heroism, not with masculinity slogans, not with movie scenes, but with observation. As a boy, pain usually attracts help. You fall, someone picks you up, you cry, someone asks what happened, you are hurt, and someone takes care of you. This creates a simple expectation. Pain leads to support. Then adulthood arrives and reality becomes less predictable. You still have pain inside, but now there are bills, there are deadlines, there are responsibilities waiting for you, there are children. The world does not stop because you are suffering. And many men eventually discover this firsthand. One of the biggest reasons men hide pain is practical. The problem remains whether they talk about it or not. They've just learned that, the debt remains, the divorce remains, the illness remains, the employment remains, the responsibility remains. After enough experience like this, some men begin viewing emotional expression as separate from problem solving. The problem still requires action, so they focus more on action. Another reality, many men have experienced situations where vulnerability produced uncomfortable outcomes. Not always, not everywhere, but enough times to shape behavior. Sometimes, they were ignored, sometimes they were mocked, sometimes they were treated differently afterwards. Sometimes people became uncomfortable. Sometimes people simply did not know what to do. The lesson some men learn is not never feel pain. The lesson they learn is keep it to yourself. Whether that lesson is healthy is another question, but many men learn it. There is also a misunderstanding about emotional suppression. People often imagine men sitting around consciously deciding to hide emotions. Usually it happens much earlier. The habit becomes automatic, like driving a car, like tying a show. A problem appears, contain emotions, focus on solution, move forward. Then repeat. After years, many men stop noticing they are doing that. It becomes like their default operating system. Another truth, a lot of men fear becoming a burden. People rarely discuss this. Many men know what it feels like to carry other people's problems, to support friends, support partners, support families, support children. And because they know how heavy problems can be, they become reluctant to add their own problems to someone else's load. So they stay silent, not because they trust nobody, but because they do not want to increase the weight others are carrying. There's also an issue of usefulness. Many men build a large part of their identity around being useful. How can I solve the problem? Can I provide? Can I help? Can I do that? Can I protect? Can I contribute? Pain often interferes with usefulness. It reminds a man of his limitations, his weaknesses, his lack of control. For some men, that creates discomfort, not because they believe they should be invincible, but because they have spent years measuring themselves through capability. A hard reality of adulthood is that sympathy has limits, even from good people, even from loving people, even from family. A person may care deeply about your suffering and still be unable to remove it. Many men eventually realize this, and once they realize it, some stop talking because they know the listener cannot actually solve the issue. Again, this does not mean they are right. It simply explains part of the behavior. Something else happens with age. Pain becomes normal, not dramatic pain, ordinary pain, the friend who died, the relationship that ended, the opportunity missed, the parent growing older, the dream that never happened, the body that doesn't recover like it used to do, the disappointment that never completely leaves. Many men accumulate these experiences quietly, not because they are unaffected, because life keeps moving. Tomorrow still arrives, work still starts at 8 a.m. Their responsibilities remain. One of the biggest myths is that silent men feel less. Reality provides little evidence for that. A man can remain completely silent and still experience grief, fear, anxiety, loneliness, regret, humiliation, or heartbreak. Silence measures expression, not intensity. The absence of words is not proof of the absence of emotion. There is also a simple fact people often overlook. Many men do not have extensive practice talking about pain. Anything improves with repetition. Sports, writing, public speaking, communication. If someone spends 20 years solving problems through action rather than discussion, discussing pain may feel awkward, unnatural, or inefficient. Not because the pain is absent, because the skill is underdeveloped. So the deepest reason many men hide pain may be the simplest. Life teaches them that responsibility does not disappear when they hurt. The child still needs food. The shift still starts tomorrow. The bills still arrive. The family still depends on them. The obligation still exists. Pain and responsibility often coexist, and many men become accustomed to functioning while carrying both. The common story is that men hide pain because they want to look tough. Sometimes that happens, but often the reality is less dramatic. They hide pain because they learn to, because they fear becoming a burden, because they are focused on solving problems, because vulnerability produced mixed results, because responsibility continues regardless of emotion, because nobody told them another method, because silence became a habit, not because they are made of stone, but because after enough years, carrying pain privately starts feeling more familiar than carrying it publicly.